This week on Supercars Torque, I preview the Beaurepairs Melbourne 400, drink some water, and ponder James Courtney's future. After trialling some energy drinks the last few weeks, I've decided to go with some water this week. It's not a sponsor or anything, but I just had a bit of, let's just say, indigestion from the energy drinks the last couple of weeks. So I'm just, I've got more to come. Don't panic, there will be more in the future. I'm just taking a break from it though this week. After some media outlets came out and said that Chris Pither was going to leave Technoteam Sydney as well, this week we've had confirmation from Chris and from Coke that they are genuine sponsors, and Chris will be staying with the team for the remainder of the season. As we suspected, he's tied up with the whole Coke deal. He has a friend or a backer or something that's been working within that Coca-Cola company for a long time. The Icebreak is one of the companies that's owned by Coke. Apparently, you know, that's all a go-ahead. And they're shocked that, you know, people have questioned this deal and things like that. Well, there's a reason we question this deal when the big announcement that Coke's sponsoring the team basically is them putting the car on a flatbed and driving it through Sydney streets. You know, there was no big announcement that this was happening. And then what came out on that flatbed was really a half-assed livery. It was like, it's a red car with Coke slapped down the side. And then they turn up in Adelaide still with the same paint job. The best way to stop all this speculation would be to come out with essentially a proper livery, not, you know, not this slapped together crap that they brought out. Have it, you know, like the old Wayne Gardner Coke Commodores or something. Something that looks like, you know, that's taken a bit more than 30 seconds to put together. Make it look like a proper sponsorship arrangement, because at the moment it looks a bit shifty. Other news coming out of the team as well. Not, unfortunately, who knows who's going to drive the car on the weekend? John O'Webb. But they've come out and said, we're a new team, and we don't have high expectations and all that kind of crap. Well, where's all the claims before Adelaide that we're going to be up the front racing with Penske and Triple Eight during the year? At least they've kind of brought back that expectation, because they weren't going to win anything this year, even with JC, and now they've got less of an opportunity. It's been rumoured for the last few weeks that Scott McLaughlin's trip over for the Indy GP in May won't be his only IndyCar race for the year, and Tim Sundrick, who's the president of Penske Racing, he's come out and said pretty much that that's true. Scott's he's in line for more IndyCar races, kind of as the schedule fits, and I think depending on how he goes, which is pretty much lining him up for a full-time drive next year, I'd expect. I don't think Penske would be just doing this off the good of his own heart kind of thing, giving Scott a bit of a reward for winning the championship like they originally said. I think this is looking for a full-time move for next year, which brings some real interesting, dynamics around as to who do you get to replace Scott in at Team Penske. Everyone's been saying, Anton's the man. Not a bad choice, but it's not like Anton's beating the pants off Decade Dave at the moment. I'd be hoping that Anton, as the season progresses, would be, at least level with Dave, if not ahead, if you're going to be taking what's, essentially one of the three best seats in the category. Notice, that second Penske seat's still got a bit of a question over it, whether it's good or not. Maybe Coulthard will be better next to Anton. But when I actually look through the field, I think they're struggling, because you've got guys now like, Chaz is under contract, Decade Dave's under contract, Nick Percat's under contract. It's a bit limited there on, there's a few guys that are kind of available, but essentially you're just signing another Coulthard. You're not signing another Scott McLaughlin. And unfortunately, I think you need a Scott McLaughlin to take it to, Triple Eight Scott, Shane Van Gisbergen and Jamie Whincup. So you need a Scott McLaughlin to take it to those guys. Shane Van Gisbergen and Lee Holdsworth have come out and complained about the quality of the new Petters shocks. They are Super Shock built. Petters have put their stickers on there, and now we're calling them the Petters Super Shock. So these guys have come out and complained because, obviously Shane had his failure at Adelaide, which actually wasn't a shock failure. It was something else, a suspension bit. Controls the car from going up and down kind of thing. So he's come out and, they've complained, there's tracks like Townsville, Gold Coast, that have got more load going through the car and things like that. And they're saying, when we get there, we're going to have heaps of failures. Well, as I looked over the weekend, it seemed to only be a couple of Triple Eight cars had the trouble with Scott Pye's one. Apparently the Technoteam Sydney cars had trouble, and the Shane Van Gisbergen car. Didn't hear of any troubles from Jamie Whincup's car or Mark Winterbottom's though. So I know Courtney's rough on cars. Mechanical sympathy isn't there. Shane Van Gisbergen drives the wheels off everything. It can be expected if something's to the limit. Those guys are probably going to find it. So I reckon you probably, rather than going, let's make this stronger or, something like that, let's just let it go. Let the guys sort out their driving style or the setups or something like that, rather than, rebuilding something and, putting an extra cost in there or whatever. At least, it actually added a little bit of interest, I thought, to the Adelaide race. Having that, where Van Gisbergen had that mechanical failure, which you just don't have these days. The guys can just drive, like Bathurst, just flat out all day, but essentially you've got no worry about anything on the car braking. Whereas at least in the old days, you had a bit of that, where something could break. So you didn't know towards the end whether cars were going to hold together in that. Whereas these days they're just flat chat. And to me, I don't want to get into a situation like the other year at Phillip Island where the Dunlop tyres, they're having failures with the Dunlop tyres, which was essentially because the guys were running too much camber. I think they were too aggressive on the setups. And then we started having failures. And rather than going, well, not everyone's having the tyre blow up, you can do what these guys are doing. They went, and we changed the tyres back to the hard ones or whatever. And if I recall, the season was, back to being a bit boring because the tyres, bulletproof and whatever, and you can drive as you like all race. Whereas at least when you got something that degrades a bit or whatever, or, if the guys want to push it too hard and it breaks, let them do it that way. I'm not, if something's unsafe, but that's the risk they want to take. If they want to push it to the absolute limit, and then, if tortoise and the hare kind of thing, if the guy who's, driving around at 95% and his car survives and he wins, that's good. If the guy driving at 100%, pushing everything, and he has a blow up or whatever, fair enough, let it go. At least it adds a bit of spice to the racing. Let's not just sanitise everything, because people come out and complain that the Petters shocks are crap, and then Petters are like, we don't want this negative publicity. Well, okay, we're in this corporate world, but I'd prefer to have a little bit of that, interest whether something's going to break, rather than just having everything bulletproof all of the time. Rick Kelly came out and said that he hasn't spoken to James Courtney about an enduro drive. Of course, the speculation came up. Kelly's and Brad Jones Racing are the only ones that haven't actually announced their enduro drivers yet. It's fully expected that Dale Wood's going to take one of those seats at the Kellys because his long-time backer, GB Galvanising, you'll see that, I think it's on the front quarter panel of the Mustangs, the Kelly Mustangs this year. And Brad Jones Racing haven't announced all their co-drivers yet. I assume it's kind of going to be who brings the biggest budget is going to get those seats. I think the Kellys are probably locked down with budget, so they don't essentially need to get a James Courtney in, and probably don't have the space on the car to put, say, big boost stickers on there, whereas especially Brad Jones Racing with their rolling sponsorship, I'm sure they could work something out for the endurance races to have boost on one of the cars. They have had boost on there in the past. So Rick came out and said that he hasn't had contact, but then he seemed to know a lot of details about how James would like to do some wild cards and things like that. So it's like, well, you know, maybe you haven't actually spoken to him, Rick, but, you know, probably Todd has or something. So it looks like James is looking, with his boost money, he's looking for a seat with someone that can provide him with some wild cards, and what I would potentially say would be a wild card entry for the endurance races, where he gets his own car and gets his own co-driver, which is also interesting that DJ Walkie came out and said that they have locked in their co-drivers and JC wouldn't be replacing one of their co-drivers. I think he actually said that, but didn't say anything that we would not have JC in a wild card or anything like that. Because I speculated that, you know, there's a guy called Warren Luff who doesn't bring any budget to the team, and they definitely need a proper sponsor on that Chaz Mostert car. So putting 2 and 2 together and getting 42, I expected to see boost down the side of Chaz's car come Melbourne, and JC announces the Enduro co-driver. But maybe, like we saw last year, where Walkinshaw ran the third car for the internationals, possibly we'll see JC in his own car come, I nearly said Sandown and Bathurst, Tail and Bend and Bathurst, and be interesting seeing JC in a decent car as a wild card at Gold Coast, because he usually goes pretty well there. But then that also brings up the big question, who's going to be his teammate there too? You know, there's a couple available, but, you know, not that many available at the moment. So, once again, no answers this week, but watch this space. This weekend, motorsport finally kicks off properly for the year. Not sure about too many other categories, but for me, the main ones are Supercars, F1 and IndyCar, which F1 and IndyCar start again. F1 with the Melbourne Grand Prix, which Supercars are part of, and that's why we've got the Melbourne preview this time. So, we all know the Melbourne Grand Prix layout now. Nice flat street circuit. Basically, the car's got to be working, or you can't just manhandle it around this joint. It sounds like they haven't got enough tyres for the weekend, and it has been predicted that some of the guys might not essentially go out in practice sessions to save a set of tyres, because they get one set of tyres, I think, for essentially practice, and then I assume one set for each of the races or something like that. Haven't actually looked at the specs on the tyres, but I have heard that possibly you might be better off not really practicing to save the tyres as much as possible. Just ridiculous when they're spending the amount of money that they're spending, and now they're saying they don't have enough tyres for the weekend. So another thing we probably should be looking at, and this year they got more tyres than what they've ever had, I think. Onto the format for the weekend. Once again, we're playing second fiddle to the F1. Fair enough, I suppose. They are the biggest show in town. If they turn up, I think we're going to see everyone turn up. Looks like the corona fears with Italy haven't quite been there, so I'd say the race will go ahead, if you can call it a race, when Mercedes will probably go and dominate again. Anyway, back onto the supercars. So Thursday, got 2 half-hour practice sessions, so a bit of time on the track for them, considering then we get the 2 10-minute qualifying sessions that haven't been fixed from last year, so we couldn't bump them up to 15 minutes, or, you know, if you look back through the videos, I've had a bit of a suggestion on how we could fix, especially at the Grand Prix, the qualifying problems with the 10-minute sessions. So yeah, Thursday, 2 half-hour practice, 2 10-minute qualifying sessions for race 1 and 2 for the weekend. Then on Friday, get a 10-minute qualifying session and the first of the 4 races. Saturday, just 2 races, and Sunday, just 1 race. All the races are equal and all that kind of jazz. And yeah, if you want to go and see the Supercars on the weekend, Thursday's probably your day. Sunday definitely not, because all you get to see is them go racing around for a few laps. Last year, Scott McLaughlin was the man, except for when Cam Waters took him out. I can't see it changing too much this year, can you? I think we're going to see Scott McLaughlin and Triple Eight right up the front. Interestingly, this is one where Fabian's gone quite well in the past. Could be a bit of a leveller for them. We could actually see Fabian playing up the front with the big boys this weekend. Tickford usually goes okay here, and surprisingly enough, Brad Jones Racing's had some pretty good results here over the years, so they'll be ones to watch out for. Be interesting to see what happens with Chaz, whether Adelaide was just a fluke or whether, Walkinshaw's got a better car for him this year. So, that's my Melbourne preview. Still don't really know where James Courtney's going to end up. I'm going to predict a third Walkinshaw car. Let me know down in the comments where you reckon he's going to end up for the rest of the year. And who do you think is going to win on the weekend? My tip, Scott McLaughlin. I'm going to, play it safe there. Let me know what you guys think. And until next time, I'll see you later.